Welcome back to Bradley's Garage. Today we're working on our Honda Element. If you guys are having that P2646 VTEC solenoid error, we're going to walk you through a couple of easy steps to resolve that and never have that issue again. All right, as you can see with our little generic scan tool, we got a P2646 Rocker Arm actuator. Definitely a clear sign that the VTEC solenoid oil pressure, it's either you're low on oil or you got some clogged screens. So we're going to show you a couple easy steps. All right, so if you've checked the obvious stuff, you know, it's make sure it's good on oil, it's not low, and you're still getting the air, then what we like to do, step one, is do the engine flush. So we're going to use the Liqui Moly Pro line engine flush. This is step one. All right, so we're going to go ahead and use this. This is pretty straightforward. All you have to do is dump it into the crankcase. Most of the time, if you haven't changed the oil in a while like we haven't, then it's probably a little bit low, so you won't have to worry about the amount of space that this takes up. So we're just going to dump this in. It's kind of like a yellow liquid. All right, so after we get this in, then we're just going to start up the car and let it idle for 15 minutes. All right, so we ran it for 15 minutes with the engine flush. We turned it off, and now we're just go ahead and look underneath. We're gonna go ahead and just do a normal oil change. So drain the oil, replace the filter, and then we'll move on to the next step. So I know what you guys are thinking. You're like, why are we doing an engine flush? How is that gonna solve anything? And here's the reason why we're doing it, okay? There's two small screens inside this motor, one for the VTEC solenoid and one for another little passageway. What we want to do is flush out the engine to make sure we clean out all of those passages, and any contaminants that are going to go on the screen are going to go on there now, okay? So that way when we clean these screens, then we know that everything is perfectly good from this point forward with a fresh oil change and fresh filter, okay? The first step is we're going to take this power steering pump and we're going to move it out of the way. So in order to do that, we've got to get our 14 millimeter onto the tensioner, the belt tensioner. And then I use a cheater, 18 millimeter cheater on there. Push it all the way back so you get enough leverage, okay? Just make sure that that wrench stays on because you don't want to strip that pulley bolt, that tensioner bolt. It's tight, so that's why you need the cheater, because it's the spring on this thing is no joke. Okay, once you get the belt off, you can just pull it off of the power steering pump, and then you can just relax your wrench there. So I just simply move the belt forward, kind of tuck it next to the radiator there. Just get it out of your way, and then you're going to get a 12 millimeter. I just have a 12 millimeter deep socket, 6-point. And we're going to go ahead and remove 3 bolts that are holding the power steering pump to the block. Okay, we got that one loose. There's another one down in here you'll have to feel with your finger. So as you can see there, that's the next one. Kind of have to do it blind. Sorry, I can't show you exactly where it's at. Okay, I'm just going to switch over. After you break it free, just switch over to the Milwaukee. That way it's easy. You don't have a lot of room. Okay, so we have that one. That's the size, and then we have the other one up top. Okay, so after we get the bolts out, then we're ready to move this out of the way. But before you do that, there's a little bracket here, and back here in the back. If you go ahead and just move that hose out of the bracket, then you have a little bit more flexibility. And what we want to do is sort of get this power steering pump and set it up onto the ABS piping here. If your car doesn't have the ABS, then you have even more room where you can kind of just tuck it over there. And then we're going to work on getting this tensioner bracket out of the way so we can access this little cover right here. There's a screen behind that we're going to need to take a look at and clean up. We switched over to a 3-inch extension with our stubby 12, and we're going to go ahead and get that in and take off the first bolt. These you might have to do by hand because you can't really get the Milwaukee in there. It's very close to the frame rail. And as you can tell, all these are the same size, so you're not going to get confused on what goes where. Switch over to just your stubby 12, and there's a 12 inside the middle of this tensioner bracket. Okay, this one obviously is the long one, so you can't mistake that. Okay, so that the third one, it's kind of hard to reach. I think it's easier just to go ahead and take off the tensioner pulley. So get your 14 on there, get your 19 wrench, and get it in position, and then break it. It's tight, damn. Okay, and like I said, just make sure you're on there good. Last thing you want to do is strip that bolt, because it will strip if you slip off. So let's go ahead and take this off. Remember, there is a nut. Sometimes it likes to fall out of the tensioner bracket. I'll show you once we get it out. But it's just a bolt with a little washer. That's for the tensioner. But inside there, there's a nut on the back side. I'll show you in a second. So we have this one out. We have that one out. The third one is down right here. So really, in order to get a socket in there and a ratchet, you need to get that pulley out of your way. So then we switch back to the 12 deep. You got to just, you know, finger it down there, find out where it's at. And then once you get it, you can see how it's kind of tucked under that engine mount. Gives you kind of the location. And there we go. Once again, you're not going to be able to get your Milwaukee in there. So what I like to do is just take the socket off of the ratchet, get it back attached, and then you can just unthread it. And once you get it close, you can go ahead and just spin it out the rest of the way by hand. Okay, you pull it out. Once again, it's the same size as all the other ones. So you have 4 regular ones, 1 long one. You know the long one goes down the middle. Okay, so here's what I'm saying about that nut. It's on the back side, and sometimes like that, it likes to fall out and then it drops, and then you're hunting for a magnet and stuff. So just go ahead and keep in mind that that nut for the pulley is on the back side, so don't drop that. So now we're ready to take off this little cover. I'm just going to break it free with my ratchet. Okay, and then we'll switch over. I put a little rag underneath there. You will get a little bit of oil that's left inside the cylinder head. It looks like somebody is, oh no problem. Okay, so it came off, the O-ring stayed around, so we're going to slowly pull that off, and we're going to look, and it actually looks really clean. I don't see any residue, so that's a good sign. Sometimes you'll get a lot of buildup of crud, kind of black debris on there, and then you'll know that it's you know, contributing to the check engine light that we're getting. Alright, so we're just going to clean this up. If this is dirty, you can clean it up, or if you want to replace it, you can buy this. We'll leave a link in the description if you want to just, if yours is so messed up or if it actually has a tear in it, then you want to replace it completely. Alright, well, we got everything cleaned up. We're just going to go ahead and reassemble now. So just go ahead and get that started. Just the most important thing is make sure that O-ring screen / O-ring stays together nicely when you put it back. Get your 2 10mm bolts. And I'm just going to snug these down. Don't have to go crazy. It is a rubber O-ring, so it is sealing properly. Okay. Alright, so I just put a little silicone on each side of the nut to keep it from falling out when we put everything back together. So let's go ahead and get it back in. So what I like to do is use this first hole so you can kind of see where it lines up on the little water jacket extension there. You can get the first one started, and then that's kind of your pivot point. Okay, and then you can switch to the long one next, and then it's just a simple of, you know, raising it up a little bit, raising and lower it until you find that center hole. Just give it a little movement. Okay. I just put the socket on and I'm just tightening everything by hand. The most important thing is make sure you're not cross-threaded. All right, and don't cinch it down too much. You want to get that third one in because it's a little bit tougher. Got to reach underneath and find the hole. Okay, you might have to wiggle it a little bit to get things started. Okay, and then same thing. I reach down with my deep socket, put it on, and then thread it in by hand. Make sure we're not cross-threaded, everything goes in nice and easy. Okay, tighten these down the rest of the way by hand. Okay, got the torque wrench on here. These are torqued to 16 foot-pounds. Just remember, you're threading into aluminum, so you don't got to get crazy. All right, and that bottom one might be kind of challenging. Let's see if I can get everything in there. One more. Okay, so this one, like I said, just remember that nut. If you weren't able to silicone it, then just keep your finger on the back side because you don't want to push it out. And once you get it started, then you don't have to worry about it. Okay, so this one's the 14, and it's impossible for us to get a torque wrench in there, so we're just going to do our best to get it good and tight. Get our cheater wrench on there and make sure it's tight. All right, so I just use a little bungee to hold the power steering pump up out of the way. After we get it off of the little ABS, then we can go ahead and get this back into position. Just 2 bolts hold the power steering. Get the easy one first, which is the top, and get the hole lined up. Okay, and then you can go to the bottom one, which is a little bit more challenging. You have to just do it by braille, and then like I said, you just wiggle it up and down until you find the hole. Get the bolt started, and I do the same thing that we did before. We go ahead and thread it in by hand. Just guarantees that we're not cross-threading, because like I said, it is aluminum, so it is important that you get it in correctly and not cross-threaded. So you're doing it right if you can get it threaded in by hand and not have any issues. And then we're going to grab our torque wrench, and still set at the previous 16, so we're going to leave it right there. All right, so I just got my 14 wrench back on there. I got the belt. My trick is to get it onto the tensioner pulley, get it started on the back of the power steering pulley, and then you got your cheater on there. Then I get back as much as I can the slack out of this hose so you have full extension. Get your left hand down there and make sure and hold that wrench, okay? And then you can bring it forward, and once you have tension, then you're good, and then you can walk that belt from the back side forward. and then you can release. All right, so we got the belt back on. Everything looks good. Like I said, as long as you didn't go let it drop down, then you should be fine. Shouldn't be an issue. Things will be pretty straight. So we have the power steering line. We still have it out of the bracket. We're going to go ahead and remove this bracket. That'll give us a little bit more room to get our hands in there. Next up, we're going to go ahead and remove this VTEC solenoid. So we're going to clean the screen there. So I know, let me see, get a little more light. All right, so you just have one plug here. You're going to go ahead and just press that in and unplug it. So that's going to unplug the solenoid. Sometimes this clip is stuck in to the metal cover. You can just move that out of the way. And basically, you just want those wires over towards the passenger strut tower, okay? Just push them out of your way. So what I like to do is I just get in there with a quarter drive 10 with a small extension, and you're going to be working on, there's three 10mm bolts that hold it to the cylinder head. So I'm actually going to throw the camera underneath and show you exactly what I'm working on, because there's no way to really show you from the top. Let's go ahead and get on the first one here. You just kind of have to find it with your finger, because there's really no way to get to it. Well, to see it anyway. So we got one there, one there, and then the third one over on this side. Okay, I got them all broken. And then just simply remove your ratchet. You have a little, that's why I put the little 1-inch extension on there, so I can keep it in my hand without dropping the socket. Now when you get all these out, you will have just get a towel ready, because you will have a little bit of oil that is going to come out of the cylinder head here. So be prepared for that. Okay, got the third one out. Pull this thing up. I forgot there's actually a second plug there. So you're going to go ahead and just press down and unconnect that as well. Try to keep it screen side up. You'll drip the least amount of oil there. Once again, the screen looks pretty clear. So let's pop it out. Okay, go ahead. All right, you can just get a little plain tip screwdriver, stick it in the edge there, get it to lift out, and then you can grab it. And like I said, a lot of times this will be full of gunk. In our case, it looks pretty clean, but we're just showing you, go ahead and clean this out, or you can purchase a new one. We'll leave the part number in the description below. And then we're gonna go ahead and just clean everything up, wipe off the cylinder head, and we're gonna go ahead and put it back on. All right, so we got everything cleaned up. We're gonna go ahead and just stick the screen and O-ring back into the assembly here. It kind of fits into a groove, so it should stay in place when you go ahead and reinstall this. So now we're gonna go ahead and get it back in position. And what I like to do is you just get one of the bolts, and I go ahead and I stick it into that bottom hole there. Okay, and then take that with your hand and go down and get it lined up that way. It'll be easier than trying to hold it down there and get one started. We have everything all wiped down, cleaned up, so we know that the bottom hole is right here, so that's what our aiming point is. So like I said, you got that in your hand. You got that wire harness off the oil sensor in your way, and unfortunately you can kind of get your hand down the left hand side by the timing belt and feel around with your left hand where the hole is, the bolt hole, and then you have the bolt sticking out, and then basically your goal is to line up that hole with your bolt and get things started. Okay, and then once you get one, that one started, the rest are pretty straightforward, pretty easy because you kind of have that stationary point. All right, so then get the next one and just make sure it's level, it's tilted, so it's straight. Get that one started as well. Okay, and then you're ready for your last one. We have the bottom one here, feel around. Okay, then I'm gonna go ahead and get my socket by hand. Just like the other ones, we're gonna thread them in to ensure everything is not cross-threaded. Okay. All right, we get our quarter drive. Snug them all down. So now all I've got to do is go ahead and plug in both connectors again. I know it's a little tough to see, but they only go on one way. Make sure they clip into place. You have the back one. Make sure it clips. Okay, it's good. So now we have the VTEC solenoid back into position. We can go ahead and get our power steering hose bracket back installed. Go ahead and make sure it's snug. Okay. And then this has a little rubber grommet on the hose, and that goes ahead and fits back inside there. All right, so we go ahead and get our drain plug back in and torque down properly. It's at 33. All right, and then we're gonna reach up, put our oil filter on, and then go ahead and get the oil back into the crankcase. All right, so new oil filter in. We just topped off the oil. The other little trick that I want to tell you guys is that we switched to 5W30 instead of the 5W20 that is called for. We found that on these Honda Acura, these little VTEC motors, going a little bit thicker, especially if you have 150,000 plus miles, works really well. So we're gonna go ahead and drive it around, see what we got, put a few hundred miles on it, see if the check engine light comes back on, see if we have the same code, and then we'll be back. Okay, so just remember, before you start driving around, put a couple hundred miles on it to see if everything looks good. Just go ahead and clear your codes, and then that way you'll be fresh. Basically, we had a pending 2646 and then a live 2646. So we'll read the codes and we got nothing. So let's drive it around, see what happens. All right, so we drove this car for about 500 miles. We want to see if that check engine light came back on. Good news for us is on this one, the P2646 didn't come back. But if it does on your car, then it guarantees you're going to need that VTEC solenoid from Honda. And we recommend getting the OEM Honda brand. Don't go with the Dorman or any of the aftermarket stuff, because I guarantee you're going to have problems. On our other element, we did the exact same process here, the 3 steps, and it's worked out great for over 10,000 miles. So you got the K24 engine on your Honda Acura. This little trick, these little 3 steps, bam, 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 knock them out, and you're going to eliminate that check engine light, that P2646, that whole bucking and kicking, stalling at 3,000 RPMs. You're going to be good to go and never have to worry about it again. So thanks again for hanging out on the channel. We'll catch you guys on the next one.